Can you see the YouTube chat?
Um, yes.
Sick. Hello?
Hey, everybody. I'm Tony,
And I'm Santi, and
and
welcome
welcome to Pentalk.
welcome to Pentalk. This is a very special quarantine episode, Pentalk episode 11, lockdown edition, and we're broadcasting live from sunny San Francisco, California.
And I'm also in beautiful, sunny San Francisco, California.
And we just wanted to welcome everybody to the show. So
And we know
today,
this is a rough time for some, and we're hoping to bring some pen enthusiasm to all you pen lovers out there. And we've got a great lineup of pens tonight, and I think there's no better way to do this but to jump straight in. So, Santi, want to take it away with our first pen?
yeah, you bet, Tony. So our first pen of the day is the Bic Crystal Extra Smooth, and that is, if we consult with the packaging, I believe in the 1 millimeter ball flavor. So just, initial impressions, the pen is a clear-bodied black ballpoint pen, capped, no clicker. Um, you can see straight through to the ink, and uh, it has kind of a hexagonal body. So your fingers really get a little bit of purchase on it. It's smooth plastic all the way up, no silicone gripper, very budget-friendly pen, and I'm sure everybody's used one of these. Tony, what do you think?
Thank you. Yeah, so, well, personally, what I like to take in first about a pen is its design and how it conceals the tip of the pen when not in use. And well, you said it before. This pen uses a cap. Um, and now it's something we see in most budget pens, which the Bic Crystal certainly is. It's especially useful in ballpoint pens because the ink is ready, just primed to flow at any moment upon any sort of friction, any sort of connection that the pen could get.
Yeah,
So it's really, I think it's the right design choice, but personally, I have to say I'm pretty partial to a clicker, and that's because I'm a fiddler, as you all know, as fans of the show,
yeah,
and I like to spin around my pen and I like to make noise with it. But with a pen like this, there's not really much to do with it, and I think it might fall a little short in the fiddling regard. But as you said, it's a budget pen, and I think it really delivers what it promises design wise.
absolutely. Yeah, if I may, Tony. Thank you. Um, Without further ado, let's get into the writing. Especially with budget pens, it's a tool for a job. So let's write. Obviously, start off with the signature, Pentalk signature test. Um, the pen, it's really the classic ballpoint experience. Kind of the Goldilocks zone of it's not too dry, it's not too wet and globby. It's just a well restrained, smooth ballpoint experience. It keeps up with fast lines, slow lines. You can apply a reasonable amount of pressure with no fear of bleed through. Um, Something that ballpoints have always excelled at and roller balls, you know, in our experience, as we've demonstrated on the show, you always have to be a little more conscientious of the bleed through potential.
Now,
Of this as
Santi,
well.
what kind of paper are you working on right
Oh,
there?
yeah. My apologies to all the viewers for not showing. This is a legal pad. Um, we have about maybe 25 sheets thick, so there's a fair amount of give underneath it. This is an excellent writing experience on the legal pad. Um, the pen kind of digs in nicely to the soft paper, um, while allowing you to kind of feel the words as they come out of your hands. Tony, what do you think?
Thank you. Well, I'll give it a try. So what I'm using right here is some very nice Strathmore drawing paper. Excuse me. It's a little bit hard to see. On the Strathmore drawing paper, it's rather grippy, I'd say. So I think it lends itself more to an easier type of ballpoint, one that it sort of fights flow, as I would say. And I know Bic is something that Bic is a company that really prides itself on the smoothness of your writing experience. And that's also something that we take very importantly on this show. So, well, I'll give it the old signature test, of course. Yeah, and Santi, I totally agree with your assessment earlier. I think it's a really smooth writing experience, especially because, well, we're dealing with a new pen here. You just unboxed it. So I think it is a given. Now, if it wasn't smooth and we had just unboxed it, well, then I'm afraid to say I would have my misgivings about the Bic pen, about the Bic crystal.
Right.
But for out of the box pen, I think it does its job. Now, it is a budget pen. It is a ballpoint. So that means it has a roller ball, and its ink is going to be gel based, not water based. It can usually lead to a smoother type of writing experience, but it's going to sit a little bit higher on the paper instead of sinking completely in. And this can certainly lead to smudging, especially if you're a left-hander or if you write really fast and you make a lot of notes. Maybe you write small, and the accuracy with which you write is really important. And maybe you're taking a lot of notes on one page. So you're writing over and over again. You're smearing your hand over the same writing maybe 2 or 3 times before you finally clear it on your way down the page. Um,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna try and simulate that pretty quick if I could just.
In regard to the writing a whole page of notes, Tony, as we've said, it is a budget pen. It doesn't have a lot of these sort of ergonomic amenities that you might expect with a more premium product. And are you experiencing that? If you were, do you imagine writing pages upon pages of notes with this, or is this something that you just go to in a pinch if you really have to?
That's a great question, Santi. I'm afraid to say because it lacks a grip. That is something you pointed out. I think if you're writing a lot and if you have to get a lot down on the paper pretty quick, I noticed even after maybe 1 or 2 passes, there was already a little bit of smudge. I mean, I could see that being a problem if I was writing very small. Um, I don't think that this is the type of pen I'd like to spend 2 hours in a lecture using. And that's just me. But I think I speak for a lot of pen enthusiasts out there when a pen isn't necessarily something that you need to skimp on. If you're a sort of frazzled person as a whole and you find yourself losing pens a lot,
Yeah.
I could see you picking up a pack of these.
And we all do, you know, there's nothing wrong with losing pens, of course.
Or if you're maybe an educator and you're trying to bring in a pack of pens for your students to share,
Right.
And you're going to be passing these out, I think this would be a good one. I don't think the writing experience is too fatiguing, but after an hour and a half of writing with this, I think I'd have enough.
Yeah.
And here, what do you think, Santi?
Yeah. Thank you, Tony. So something that I wanted to touch on with this Bic crystal is the durability. Um,
Mhm.
this is a cheap pen, and I think that something for anyone who's written with this pen extensively or had it in a pocket, in a bag, they've likely seen how, when exposed to some stressors, it has a tendency to shatter. Have you seen this before, Tony?
I have, yeah, especially in a dropped pencil bag that's maybe been stepped on, or if you have a lot of stuff in your backpack and you throw it on the ground.
Yeah, yeah. And that's, I guess it's something to be expected. It's with the clear plastic, that sort of cut crystal, as Bic. So I guess there's their marketing, right? It looks like
Mhm.
a glass, but that comes with the territory of having a very fragile plastic. A lot of other very cheap pens, they have a softer plastic. Um, they might bend instead of shatter when they're exposed to significant stress. Um, so that is something that I think every user ought to look out for. Uh, in addition to that is the fit of the cap. Um, because of that hexagonal cut glass, cut crystal design, the and the round cap, it should be mentioned, the cap is round, not hexagonal. Um, the fit, when you place the cap on the pen or on the end for storage, it's not completely precise. You're trying to fit a square peg into a round hole, or a hexagonal peg, if you will. Um, and it's, it's sort of a detractor from the overall experience of the pen. There's not much fiddleability to it, as far as you can go is capping and uncapping, but there's kind of that friction there from that imperfect fit. So this is a pen that I think we're all very accustomed to and we've used a lot, but
It's
it,
ubiquitous.
it is certainly ubiquitous.
Ubiquitous.
It's but at the end of the day, it's just meant to be a grab and go. I don't think that for anyone this is their you know pick of the litter.
Absolutely. And now we've talked a lot about this hexagonal shape, and I think it is really interesting. You see a lot of budget pens. They'll maybe go with a cheap silicone grip or forego that grip at all, but keep the pen circular.
Yeah.
And now I've been sort of waffling a little bit on what I think is the best fit here. And, I have to say, I think it's a unique choice. I don't know whether it adds to the pen or not. I simply haven't used it enough to say for sure. I'm not really a budget pen user much myself, but I think it definitely makes the pen unique. And among budget pens, I think it stands out a little bit.
I think so too, Tony. So with that, that's I think all we have for the
Mm-hmm.
Bic Crystal. Tony, if you will, please start us off on our next pen. What do we have?
Absolutely. So for our next pen for the podcast, we have the Bic Soft Feel. And as you may be able to see, if my background would obey, it says comfort and soft touch. And well, here on the show, we're going to really let you know if it's comfortable and has a soft touch.
Yeah.
So let's just open it up right here. Thanks to everybody who gave feedback on Pentalk episode 9, or excuse me, episode 8, the unboxing episode. We're glad you guys enjoyed the unboxing that we do on the show. So now, I got one of the Bic Soft Feels here. Um, uh, it's a little bit middle to low tier, I'd say. It's better than a budget pen, but well, it still comes in a pack of 5 for $4. So I'll let that speak for itself. It has a sort of matte black plasticky finish with a nice silicone grip. Grabbing it now, it's pretty grippy, but well, we did just unbox it. So, of course, the grip should work best now, shouldn't it?
Right.
It is a clicker style pen, something I enjoy. And I think overall it has a sleek feel. The tip is a little bit unique among pens. It's longer than you see, longer than the G2, longer than the V6. Um, and now if I could compare it to the Bit Crystal, um, well, it's the same length, but it takes a more slender design, and it's a little bit more aggressively tapered, I'd say. Yeah. Would you
Okay,
like to
Tony.
check it out?
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you very much. So this is quite a pleasant pen for the hand. You mentioned the gripper briefly, and the whole body of the pen has sort of a soft touch plastic about it. And I know you already covered this, but it remains to be seen how this holds up in the context of a pencil bag or something that you'll be touching and handling. Does this pick up a lot of excess grime? Does it attract dirt? Does it get hard and shiny like some do? Or does that soft touch wear off?
Mhm.
These are all things that I think we have experienced with soft touch feel on pens. So that's an important thing to note with any pen that has sort of something other than a silicone gripper or glossy plastic. Um, as far as the aesthetic goes, it's very simple, kind of in keeping with Bic's overall philosophy for a lot of these budget pens. Uh, that cylindrical design, cylindrical gripper, not a very soft gripper. It's quite hard. It's almost like the shaft of the pen is just a little extra thick towards the tip, something to grab onto. But there's not a significant material difference between the rest of the body of the pen. It's quite continuous in its surface. Something that does impress me about the pen's design is actually the clip. Uh, for such a budget-friendly pen, I know that sometimes the clips can be a pain point. Sometimes they can be really kind of cheesy or flimsy. This is it's like a rectangular prism shape, um, if you can see right there, and it just feels very sturdy. Testing the page capacity, I mean, you could put several pages in this clip, and it would hold them with no problem. I don't have any fear that it's going to break, even if you're fiddling, sticking your thumb underneath it. As I know with the G2, it has that tendency to shatter, right, when you put your thumb underneath it. But this seems very robust. Um, so let's get on with the writing experience, shall we? Um, so again, this is a brand new pen, I should say. Needs a little warm up. It's a little dry when I go at it straight away.
And
But
now, Santi, this is also just like the Bit Crystal, a ballpoint pen, which means it's going to have a roller ball and gel-based ink. Means the ink is going to sit a little bit higher on the page. It's not going to soak in quite as easily. It's going to generally have a smoother feel, but it might result in a little easier smudging, as well as a little bit of a blander look.
yeah, it doesn't have that flair as a lot of rollerballs do or felt tip pens that you might have experienced. This writing experience is honestly, it's almost indistinguishable from the Crystal. Of course, these are both offerings from Bic.
My bad.
So, sorry, Tony,
Oh,
if you will.
thank you.
Yeah.
Sean. Well, yeah, I could give it a right too. Now,
Yeah. So
well, I noticed something immediately.
mm-hmm.
Now, I am writing on a pad of paper. That does generally make it a little bit smoother, a little bit softer of a writing experience, and leads to a bolder line. But there's some nice auditory feedback. Now, I don't know if you're experiencing a similar thing to me, Santi,
Oh,
but
I had my headphones on. I suppose I should probably take those off to test
yeah,
it
it
out.
could be worth a try. But I hear a little bit. I actually hear when my pen interacts with the page, when it interfaces. as it would. Um,
Oh.
and I think that's really nice. And now it could be just me, could be the situation that I'm in. Um, I'm writing on a little bit rougher paper than what I usually would. Certainly, what I rougher paper than it would be if I was taking notes in a class
Mhm.
or if I was signing some documents. This is artistic paper, and it's meant to grip whatever material that comes in contact with it. But I can almost hear it grab, and I think that's a really nice feature.
Yeah.
It's hard to articulate, hard to describe, but the writing experience is quite pleasant, in my opinion.
Tony, go ahead and write a little bit for me. See if I can hear that too. Yeah, actually, there does seem to be, and for the audience, I'm not sure. Maybe you guys can pick up on that, but I can actually hear Tony's pen from here. Um, it's there is some auditory feedback, and we've touched on this before. Um, I believe episode 5 we covered the pilot precise rolling ball, and I mentioned how the auditory feedback from that was one of my favorite aspects of the pen. That was, of course, a roller ball, so it's a different category, and that should be mentioned. But my preference for that holds true here. The the ability to have another sensory cue to guide your writing experience, just it's a whole other dimension. It's something special that I think is it's an extra added feature for any pen.
Now, I do have a criticism.
Mm-hmm.
The auditory experience is really nice, but I'm looking at the lines on the paper, and well, I'm not impressed.
Mm.
I don't think the ink quality is that good, even for a budget pen. In fact, the Bic Crystal, which is probably $2.50 cheaper, I think had a more robust and solid line than the Bic Soft Feel. And for me, somebody who likes liquid ink pens, somebody who likes the Sharpie, well, it simply doesn't measure up. And honestly, it's a big disappointment, especially for something that's looking to maybe rise up on the shelving, you know? Something that's trying to hit halfway between the Bit Crystal and the Pilot G2.
Yeah.
And I think if Bic can't figure out the ink and make it a darker, more bold line, well, I don't think that's going to cut it.
Yeah. I think that's a great point, Tony. This is sort of an odd middle ground between the very cheap disposable pens and the more premium clickers, the G2s and the Signos, etc. So this is a space occupied. The Uniball Onyx comes to mind. That's been a recommendation of ours for a more budget-friendly pen.
And trust us, we have it in the queue. We'll get to it eventually.
Oh, of course. Um, the Yeah, it's sort of this space between legitimate office pens or something you can take notes with all day long, and these cheapo giveaways. And honestly, the soft feel, while it does feel soft, it's got a great hand presence. As far as a writing instrument, it doesn't carry itself beyond the status of the cheap giveaways like the Crystal.
I will say though, insofar as the design of this pen, well, I do think it is pretty nice. I like their decision to keep one solid matte finish throughout the whole thing, tip to tail, including the uh, including the finger grip.
Yeah,
Um, it makes the whole pen look grippy, and when you grab a hold of it, it's really a tantric experience. Using it to write and maybe even draw.
yeah. It's got sort of that stealth bomber aesthetic. And we've mentioned that before with respect to the Uniball Signo 305, the successor to the legendary 205, as we all know. That also had a sort of all blacked out appearance, and we were very taken by that. So aesthetically, yes, Bic, they're in the running, but we're Pentalk. We're all about the writing, and this pen, to be honest, just doesn't really live up.
as the saying goes, it's not how you get there, but it's what you leave on the page that matters. And
That's right. That's what they say.
it kind of falls short on that.
Yeah. So
Well,
Tony, I noticed you were sipping on a little something there. I think
hmm
it's maybe time to talk a little tea.
I think I could be persuaded to talk a little tea.
Why not? Well, so today's tea is the Bigelow Earl
Mhm.
Grey black tea with Italian bergamot. So,
Now, Santi, could you tell us a little bit about well the, what you know about this tea? What information is given to us from the
yeah,
packaging?
so they they tell us that this is a premium black tea flavored with bergamot fruit from Italy.
Mhm.
So the something that I get asked all the time is, Santi, what is bergamot fruit, right? Um, and it's a green citrus fruit. Bigelow's kind enough to provide this beautiful illustration of a bergamot fruit. And uh, it's believed in some circles that the bergamot is a hybrid between a bitter orange and a lemon. It's a green or yellow small citrus fruit, and the rind and the oil is used to flavor black tea, and that's what gives rise to Earl Grey. So Tony, what
Well,
are your impressions
yeah.
so far?
Well, I must say, so as you can see, I brewed myself a rather large mug here. Um, make sure to stay hydrated,
Yeah,
and
especially now when the sickness is going on.
especially, yeah. Um, and I can definitely taste the bergamot now that you pointed out that it's sort of reminiscent of citrus. Um, now, I noticed something unique about this tea,
Yeah,
and you know, it's pretty good for a black tea. Um, I think it really gets the job done. It wets the palate,
mm.
and well, something great to enjoy while you're writing away.
Yeah, definitely. I noticed that the tea, it's kind of a medium tannic. It's not super harsh. That bergamot also it helps round out the flavor a little bit. Um, I know people elsewhere sometimes they'll put lemon in their black tea. So the bergamot, it's almost another avenue to get that citrus flavor um, into the tea bag itself without having to add any sort of exogenous fruit to the experience.
Definitely. And well, one thing that I've had trouble with my black teas is I'm a chronic oversteeper.
Mm.
I'll often throw it in there, start drinking, and well, forget that I've been steeping, and all of a sudden I've been steeping for 10 minutes.
Yeah, and that can
And
lead to a very bitter, harsh tea if you're
yeah,
not.
well, when I made this cup, I made sure to only steep for exactly as long as it recommended. On the package, it recommended 2 minutes of steep time. Um, and I think that was more than enough for even such a big mug. I think the 2 minutes extracted just enough of the flavor and a little bit of the dark aroma to make a fine black tea.
Yeah,
So I have to take my hat off to the people at Bigelow, and I think they made a really great black tea.
yeah, I agree. Um, so again, that was the Bigelow Earl Grey black tea. Now, Tony, I think
Yeah.
because we are in such an unusual time, we wanted to do something special for all the fans. Could
Mhm.
you tell us what we've got ready for everyone?
Absolutely. Santi, I'm so excited to introduce this. So, back in Pentalk, uh, episode 5, we tried a new thing. We reached out to all the pen enthusiasts before the show, and we asked if you could ask us some questions that we would answer on air. What are they? And some people tweeted at me, and that was really fun. And we actually got to answer a few of them on air. Unfortunately, well, we only had enough time to answer 2 or 3 questions.
Mm.
And I know there was so much interest in the questions, lots of fans,
Yeah, we really do have the best fans around.
we really do. And, we wanted to sort of ease some of that access. And we know that some people might unfortunately be feeling a little bit isolated in these trying times. So, for our final segment, where we do a little interest piece, sometimes we review a fun pen, Um, sometimes we'll even bring on a guest. Well, today, you, the Pentalk viewers, are going to be our guest on the show. We're going to do about 20 minutes of rapid fire pen questions taken from 6 very important pen enthusiasts we have on the Zoom call. They've been waiting so patiently throughout the whole show to ask us their questions. And we're going to be also taking them from the YouTube feed. So right now would be a great time. Just ask those questions. They can be related to what type of pen we like, where we usually find ourselves writing. Anything on the theme of pens. Um, and I think we'll get to as many of the questions as we can um, in the time that we have allotted. So ask away, and we're going to bring on one of our pen enthusiasts right now. Really quickly, let's make sure we can get this. All right. Here we go. We're going to bring on one of our very important pen enthusiasts, and they're going to ask us our first question. Pen class of 2019. Here we go. And welcome to the show, Pen class of 2019. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, we're thrilled to have you.
Yeah, and why don't you ask away?
All right. So from pen class of 2019, which pen is the best to give me that academia aesthetic I'm going for and to earn the respect of the students I teach? Now that's an excellent question. Pen class of 2019.
Well, Santi, I can think of one pen right off the top of my head that will earn the respect of anybody who sees you writing with it. And I know we've discussed it on the show before. This is going to be a Mont Blanc pen. This is probably one of the highest standard of pens you can possibly get. And I think anybody who sees you writing with a Mont Blanc is going to be instantly impressed.
Yeah, definitely. That's a pen where people know of that. People know Mont Blanc. It's something that will get you noticed, uh, especially I think depending on sort of the atmosphere of the institution you're at. If there's something, if the reputations are very important, or this is a very kind of elite environment, something like that will catch eyes. I think conversely, Tony, there are some other options that might earn respect, and that is some sleeper picks as far as pens go. One of my favorites, the Pilot Precise Rolling Ball. I'm a perennial fan of this pen, and I think that for the reason that it's a pen few people have seen before. It's not something that's easy to find, um, but the writing has a lot of character to it. It's a very handsome pen. It has a great design, and it's one of those things that will, while people won't recognize it like they would the Mont Blanc, it will pique their interest, certainly, and they might even ask you, hey, what pen is that? And as an icebreaker or to capture the attention of other people, you can't ask for anything more than that, right?
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Pen Class of 2019. I hope that was a satisfying answer. All right. Now, our next question is from Pen Enthusiast.
Hi, Pen Enthusiast. You're on the air.
Our next question is from Pen Enthusiast.
Hi, Pen Enthusiast. You're on the air.
Our next question is from Pen Enthusiast. I hate to interrupt, but if you might have the stream open in the background, could you make sure to mute that? Thank you so much, Pen Enthusiast. When is it time to get a new pen? Wow, great question. Well, I think certainly the best time to get a new pen is if you're one of the lucky, very, very rare type of pen enthusiast. I'm certainly not one of them who's able to take a pen and write with it from start to finish. And I'm talking about using up all the ink in the cartridge till it doesn't work anymore. And that's how you know a pen has been loved. That's a great pen that you've been using. But well, it's time to either get a new cartridge, get a new pen, or maybe try out something else.
Yeah, I agree, Tony. That's a very satisfying feeling, of course, to know that you've used a pen for its entire life. It served you well, and you kind of come to that crossroads where, I've used and loved this pen so much that I've been able to get through the entire thing, that it's almost an indication you ought to buy another one, right? This thing has served you so very well, but as with all pen enthusiasts, the journey must continue. So it's okay to just remember that pen fondly, perhaps. You might want to buy some as a backup, but allow yourself to go reach out of your comfort zone. Take this as an opportunity to try something new, or grab something new from your bag that maybe you've been putting off.
Amazing. Well, yeah. Thank you so much, Pen Enthusiast. Wonderful question. Now, I think it's time. We've gotten a lot of great questions from the YouTube feed, so I'm going to scroll through there. Santi, I'm going to throw you 2 quick questions from the YouTube feed.
Yeah, absolutely, Tony.
All right. This one, how many pens is too many?
Ooh, how many pens is too many? If you start losing them and you don't realize you're losing them, you might have too many pens.
I agree. All right. And then another question. In your expert opinion, is ergonomics or durability more important?
Such a difficult question. But I would argue that it's kind of a cop-out answer, but I don't think you have to compromise in this regard. We've covered so many very impressive pens on this podcast that are exemplary in both regards. I will try to answer the question, durability versus ergonomics. I would have to say durability. There are very few things that are more frustrating than a pen just completely stopping on you in the middle of some writing project. And as long as this isn't something that's really cutting into your hands and causing harm to you, as long as you can kind of get through it and continue writing, you have to ultimately doing your writing is the most important part. So I'll say durability.
Amazing. Well, great answers. All right. Now keep going on our rapid fire question. We're going to bring in our next very important pen enthusiast, Pen 15. Welcome to the show.
So from pen 1-5, if you were a pen, what pen would you be? And who would you belong to? Very
Great
good
question.
question.
I think if I was a pen, and this may be a little self-aggrandizing, but I think I would be a Pilot G2.5 blue. And wow, pen 15, we're on the same wavelength.
Yeah,
Well,
and
I
if
think
not to interrupt
I
you,
would.
Tony, I think we've seen a couple G2s from our viewers so far, which really speaks to the influence of this pen in the current zeitgeist.
Yeah, I really think there may be no pen more influential to our century than the Pilot G2.
Yeah, I would agree.
But back to the question, who would I belong to? Now that's a tough question. I think, I don't think I could say that I belong to somebody in specific, but I think I'd belong to a student. I think I'd belong to somebody who's trying to use this pen for learning and for knowledge.
Yeah, great answer, Tony. What pen would I be? I like to think that I would be a uniball roller. This is a capped pen. I'm a fan of capped pens, and it's just a sturdy mainstay pen that it gets the job done, and it looks okay while doing it, you know? And not to take your answer, Tony, but I think that I would also belong to a student. Someone that's diligently engaged in learning and spreading their ideas and developing themselves.
Absolutely.
So, Pen 1-5, thank you so much for the great question. And you're very welcome. Thank you.
Wonderful. All right. Thank you so much. Pen 15. And now we're going to bring on another very important pen enthusiast to ask us a question. Inkwell Markel, welcome to the podcast.
And if I don't say, that looks like another G2.
Santi, I think you're right.
Inkwell, you're on the show.
Take your time. No rush. go go back, if I may, to something Tony mentioned earlier. He referred to himself as a fiddler. As an educator, if I in
I am
intentionally, if I am
aware
intimately aware,
of the dire need for fidgets for students' ability to find
fic,
focus.
focus, peas, pens, focus
Pen,
pens, of course.
to focus, period. Pens can serve that purpose, to be sure. Do you believe there is a trade-off in fidgetability and practical use? And do things like fidget cubes need to exist, given the universal fidgetability of pens? Wonderful question from Inkwell. And a great perspective, that of an educator, somebody who's intimately familiar, as you said, with the necessity of fidgetability. This was something that struck me when the fidget spinner, as we're all aware, came on the market 2 or 3 years ago and took the nation by storm. I was surprised by the need for a fidgeting object because undoubtedly, if you're in class or you're writing something, you have a pen, which, depending on the pen, and we've covered so many on this wonderful program, that a lot of pens, beyond something with just a cap, right? This is minimal fidgetability, but it's a baseline. But there's still enough fidgetability there. So pens like the G2, like you're using, Mr. Inkwell, or any other pens of that vein that can be disassembled and taken apart and clicked, and the clicker mechanism played with and springs played with. I think there's a lot more fidgetability in a humble pen than in fidget cubes or fidget spinners. What's your take, Tony?
Well, I'd have to say I agree. Now, I think the limit of what you can fidget with a pen, well, the limit is your own creativity. And I personally don't think there's any sort of trade-off between fidgetability and the usefulness of a pen. In fact, well, I think they work together. I think, in fact, the more utility that a pen has, the easier it is to fidget. For example, now I'm a big fidgeter. I often do spins like that. But one of my go-tos is a little spin. I've learned how to do this little spin right here. And one thing is that if I take our two pens that we have here today, one of them is a budget pen, one of them is a slightly more expensive pen. And the slightly more expensive pen, the Soft Touch, well, it has a grip. And the whole body is a little bit more sticky, a little bit more matte finish. And I think that actually makes fidgeting not only easier, but more rewarding because you can really take it to the next level.
Yeah.
To Inkwell Markel's second point, I think there exists a place for fidget spinners and for fidget cubes. I think, every child, every learner fidgets differently and interfaces with pens and has a different level of dexterity in their hands. And I've practiced for many hours in class, being able to do this spin and being able to do this spin, right? But for somebody who maybe hasn't had as much practice time, hasn't been able to see somebody and had somebody teach them how to do that, I think it might be daunting to learn how to fidget with a pen. And I think that might detract from the actual benefit that the fidgeting brings.
Yeah.
So for that reason, I think there's a space for all of them, but I think a pen really can do it all. It can do it all.
And the fact that every student has a pen, it really democratizes fidgeting in a way that a purpose-built item can't. Thank you, Inkwell, for the question. That was really an insightful topic to get into.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much, Inkwell. Now we're going to take it back to our YouTube audience. I hope you've been asking those questions. Santi, I'm going to throw a few more questions your way.
Sounds good, Tony.
All right. I found some great pens here, or some great questions. Excuse me. There we go. Now, this is a question from a longtime viewer. Do I buy ink cartridge refills or a new, different type of pen?
Well, I would say, personally myself, I've never bought a refill. I'm not sure, what the societal implications of that or how that reflects on my personality, but that's just the case for me.
I know myself. I'm very similar to Santi. I almost never make it to the end of a pen. I can't remember a time that I have, so I buy new pens. Great question. Now, this is another one. Which pen would you gift to each Jonas brother? Wow, a very pop culture question. I know we try to keep up with pop culture on this podcast, so this is a great question. Now, I think for Nick Jonas, well, I'd give him a G2. Going back to it, always
so?
a great gift, and I think I assume he's the best at writing out of the three of them. I really don't know who writes their music. Maybe not any of them, but if one of them did, they'd need a G2.
Yeah. For Joe, I would recommend keep it in the family. How about a D7?
Absolutely. And for the last one, I would get him a Sharpie.
Yeah. Great choice.
I think
Tony.
we all know who the last one is.
Yeah, that really fits his personality.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the wonderful questions. All right. Now we're going to go back to our very important pen enthusiasts. And that's going to be Big Fan 42.
Big Fan 42, you're on the air.
That's going to be
Any eco-friendly / plastic-free / biodegradable pens on the market? And a heart. Oh, thank you, Big Fan 42.
This is actually a great question. Now, I have seen one eco-friendly Pilot G2 sister pen made out of 100% recycled plastic. It has a nice, sleek design. It's got actually a clear case that kind of is reminiscent of a plastic water bottle. And I think that's a great eco-friendly pen.
Yeah, that's a great nod. Something that I mentioned earlier this episode, I believe, is actually the Uniball Onyx. That pen also advertises having a high proportion of post-consumer recycled plastic in its body. So.
And now I've also seen a few pens made entirely out of cardboard.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, These are not the type of pens that you'd want to put in your pencil case and forget about. They are certainly weaker than the average plastic pen, but certainly an option for those looking for an eco-friendly, plastic-free pen.
Yeah, it's not like a straw. You're not drinking through it, so it should be able to hold up a cardboard pen to the rigors of writing, and hopefully your hands aren't so sweaty they'll melt right through. Thank you,
Awesome.
Big Fan 42, for the fantastic question.
Great question. And I believe we have one more very important pen enthusiast, and then we'll wrap it up with maybe a few more questions from the live stream. And
Absolutely.
that'll be that. Welcome, Bic, greater than. I believe we have one more very important pen enthusiast, and then we'll wrap it up with maybe a few more questions from the live stream. And that'll be that. Welcome, Bic, greater than. Welcome, Bic, greater than.
All right, and Bic greater than. Before we answer the question, would you be able to mute the stream if you have it on in the background? Awesome, thank you so much. So, I want a pen that
Extends, establishes,
if you could bring it a little closer to the camera for us. Thank you so much. That catches my future husband's eye from across the room. I don't care about durability, functionality, glam factor only. Recommendations. Wow, really an outside the box question for this program, but something that, again, should be addressed. Every pen enthusiast should have their questions answered.
Personally, if I were to be picking a pen based on what will attract my future husband, I would want something that would show them that, I'm more than meets the eye. So for that reason, I would go with a multicolor pen. Now, we've reviewed one of these on the podcast before. It has a rather large body, but it has the ability to click down into multiple different colors. And I think a pen like that would be just unique enough to catch the eye of that special someone.
Yeah, I think that really communicates to any potential suitors that you are a versatile person and you're up for anything. Great question. Bic greater than. Thank you so much for joining us.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Bic greater than. All right. Now let's take a few questions from the YouTube stream. Let's see if there's any more. If you have any questions at all, now is a great time to ask them. Oh, here's a question. Santi, do you nibble on pen?
Do I nibble? You know, I have to admit, as a younger person, as a child, I was a nibbler. Um, Obviously, under the current pandemic, it's not prudent to be a nibbler, and I'm fortunate enough to have kicked that habit some years ago, but I went through a phase, I have to admit.
Amazing. Personally, I am not. I've never been a nibbler. I will push maybe against the lips. I won't now, on account of the current global situation. But I have been known to do some of that. Well, I think that was a great rapid fire question session.
Yeah, thank you to
And
all
that,
our loyal
yeah,
fans, all the pen enthusiasts out there. We could, really sense a great penthusiasm for this particular episode, and we're glad that we were able to share it with you.
absolutely. And as always, keep on writing.